many of you know that I've been promoting infrared saunas for a long time, but a near infrared sauna, and I've recently changed my position, largely because I think it's very difficult to get the benefits of near infrared, not necessarily the benefits of mid and far. They do that very well, in fact, better than almost any far infrared sauna, but it comes at a price. Usually the saunas are a bit more expensive, and they're a bit more challenging to use, and you have to rotate. You can't relax as easily, and if you're tall like me at 6 foot, you got to scoot down, and so there's some complications with it. But they're really good saunas, and they really heat you up well. In fact, you have to be very careful because it's difficult. You really can't modulate the temperature as well. You just have to guess and play with it. And there's not a thermometer that you can precisely regulate what your dose is so that you can go in. And the far infrared saunas have this. So I've actually changed my position to consider a far infrared sauna. And when you're considering a far infrared sauna, one of the most important things you can do, and it's really vital, is to understand is that there is a wide variety of implementations of how they make their saunas safe from electrical fields and magnetic fields. Most of them do a fairly good job of shielding against magnetic fields, but virtually none of them shield electric fields well at all. And they use a deceptive ploy to say they're abiding by that, and they actually advertise as low EMF saunas using the wrong standard. They're using a traditional standard, and that's just wrong. That is just not good. So I would be really careful about choosing a company that uses those tactics, and most of them do. So if you have one that you're using, that's fine. Doesn't mean you can't use it. It means you're going to have some high EMFs. You can get a meter to measure these electric fields and measure it yourself. Don't rely on what they're saying, but make sure that you understand what the healthy ranges are, not what the deceptive ranges they're telling you. So don't trust the companies, trust yourself, do your research and figure it out. I know for a fact, I've written a whole book on EMF, so I'm really quite familiar with this topic. So I've been using this high-tech health sauna to do a really good job of shielding. So I talked with one of the physicians who works with the company, and we have a really interesting dialogue that if you have any interest in sauna, I think you'll find some value. And so hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I did participating in it.
Heating your muscles is where a lot of the benefits of exercise comes from. And you get a lot of that with the sauna. There's incredible cardiovascular benefits. Frequent sauna users are shown to have a lower risk of heart disease. So when you're acclimated to the heat, it comes with some physiologic changes, and you have a lower core body temperature at rest, you have a lower heart rate, you have an increased plasma volume, a lot of the same things that you get from exercise. Also in that state, you can have up to a 4 times normal level of heat shock proteins. All of your tissues are more resistant to damage and better able to repair themselves.
Welcome everyone, Dr. Mercola helping you take control of your health. And today we're going to have a nice little dialogue about saunas because I changed my position on this after a number of years. I think, I'm passionate about near infrared. It has so many benefits in biology to improve your health, radically improve your health. But what I didn't appreciate, the devil's always in the details. Mm-hmm. We'll go into it in a little bit, but essentially what I've concluded, we'll go into the details in a bit, but what I've concluded is that the conventional rendition of a near infrared sauna doesn't work. It really is only working because you're getting the far. So you may as well go with the far because there's a lot more practical, I think, just simply speaking. But we're going to go into the details, and we have a physician, Jenna, who is out of Colorado, and she's been working with this form of therapy for a while. We'll get her details in a moment. But we're going to have a deep dive on this. There's so many things. We could talk endlessly for hours about this topic because I think it's really an important, valuable strategy to integrate into your life if you're not already. It's not a foundational basic. There's far more things like just getting out in the sun and walking would be more foundational. But if you're doing that, this is necessary. And we'll go into the reasons why. I believe it's so. Primarily because we're living in a sea of toxins that never existed before on this planet. Never in human history have we had this exposure. So our ancestors never required this because they didn't need it for the most part. This is a totally different environment we're living in now. And if you don't understand that, it would behoove you to start that journey of discovering what you're exposed to, because it's literally a nightmare. I mean, there's some people where it's not as much of an issue because you're living in very isolated conditions and kind of similar to what our ancient ancestors did, but almost every one of us don't fall in that camp. So with all that context, welcome and thank you for joining us, Jenna.
Thank you for having me. Excited to
All right,
be here.
so how long have you, now you're in Colorado, what type of medical practice do you have? You're a physician, MD.
I'm a physician. I'm actually not in practice anymore. I was an ER doctor for pediatric ER doctor.
Oh boy, that's an interesting.
Yeah, it was an interesting change. I worked for 8 years in the ER, and before I found my way over to the infrared sauna world, I found High Tech Health, and it was a big change. But I've loved it. It's a great company. I'm very happy. So I'm the medical director at High Tech Health. So I have done probably more research on the benefits of infrared saunas than I would guess that almost anybody has.
Yeah. Well, what have you compiled? What do you believe to be the most significant benefits from infrared sauna?
So yeah, it's so hard to pick one. I mean, there's just so many benefits. The research shows that they have a lot of the same health benefits as exercise, which is pretty incredible. You know, just relaxing in your sauna can give you the same.
Well, it's a type of exercise, really, cardiovascular.
Yeah. But they basically, that heating your muscles is where a lot of the benefits of exercise comes from. And you get a lot of that with the sauna. There's incredible cardiovascular benefits. It lowers, frequent sauna users were shown to have a lower risk of heart disease. So there's this really cool series of studies out of Finland where they followed over 2,000 people. It was a prospective cohort. So they followed over 2,000 people for up to around 20 years. And I think this is easier to do over there because the way they register and keep track of people.
Well, I think they have more saunas than telephones.
Well, and that too. It's very much part of the culture over there. So everyone, has a sauna in their house, and they sauna as a family, and bring their newborns in there. So, but they found that after 20 years, frequent sauna users, so people who used a sauna 4 or more times a week, compared with people who used it 1 or less times a week, had a to 63% lower odds risk of dying from heart disease. And they even accounted for the, cardiac risk factors. That's after taking into account for the risk factors. And they found that in that same study that frequent sauna users had a 38% lower chance of all-cause mortality. So
it's impressive stats, but if you look at the details of that study, you'll find that wasn't with a far infrared sauna. That was with a conventional Finnish sauna. That was with a
conventional sauna, yes.
Yeah, because there hasn't been a lot of research, sadly, about infrared saunas. I mean, there's some.
There has, and I'll talk about that. But yeah, but you're right. And I usually say that as a caveat when I talk about those studies. Yeah. But based on the research also, it seems that most of the health benefits you're getting from raising your core body temperature and the temperature of your muscles.
That makes sense. I'd like to dive into details as we talk, because I think that's really key. So from your analysis and understanding, what do you think that increase should be?
Yeah.
Is it a relative temperature? Because some people have a low metabolic function and their baseline is significantly lower. They're not at 98.6. They might be at 95 or 96. So, or is there's an absolute threshold that's required?
So we've done a lot of research on that. There is a lot of research on that because they study that for the purpose of athletes. You have when you're acclimated to heat, you have a better endurance, better sports performance. So there is a lot of research on that, and there's not an agreed on absolute answer. There's some studies that show that it's the peak temperature that matters. There's some studies that show that it's the rate of rise is important. So how fast you're getting up there. And then there are some studies that show that it's the delta, the change. So if you're starting lower, then you don't have to get as high to get the same effects.
So what is the number that you're shooting for? Is it 100, 101, 102? 103?
Well, I guess it's the delta. I guess the one where they did actually look at the number, it was 101.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it, if you translate it. There was one study that showed you had to have a certain amount. That was the most specific outcome that I saw, or conclusion that I saw, that they said you have to have a 101 for over 20 minutes or something like that. But most of the studies didn't give an absolute number. I think it varies a little bit from person to person too, but yeah, and the goal, what you're trying to do there, is activate these heat shock proteins. If you want me to kind of go into those,
Yeah, that seems to be the primary benefit, and there's a whole variety of different heat shock proteins. But most people don't know what a heat shock protein does. I didn't for a while until you realize.
I didn't either. We didn't really learn about them in medical school, and I realized actually the reason why is because we didn't know much about them even when I was in.
Yeah, but they're important critters for sure.
They are. Yeah, so they're in all of our cells. They make up, just at baseline, they make up 10% of the proteins in our cells on average, which, that's pretty incredible. We have 2 billion proteins in every cell. So 10% of those are heat shock.
Do you know what the most common protein is? Numero uno.
No.
Collagen.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know heat shock protein was so high, though. That's pretty amazing. Collagen is about 30% of the protein. Yeah, no,
is it really?
Is that just intracellular proteins or include extracellular?
I think that's intracellular. Yeah, so collagen would be
yeah, because collagen would definitely, it's mostly almost all extracellular.
Yeah, that makes sense, because that's just kind of in throughout or I think that's intracellular. Yeah, that it's 10%. But yeah, their job, basically, they're the quality control for all the other proteins. So their job is to look out for damage. And when a protein gets damaged, they either repair it or they, take it. If they can't repair it, they bring it to the digosomes to get rid of it. So they're the housekeepers, they're the quality control, they're monitoring for protein damage. So
they facilitate repair, but the primary thing they do is refold the proteins.
Right, which is unfolding is the type of damage. When a protein starts losing its shape and gets folded. Yeah.
Well, it may just be made incorrectly because you don't have enough cellular energy. Because my understanding is a third of the proteins from the moment they're made are misfolded. So
that could be.
Yeah, about a third of them are misfolded. So that's 2/3 aren't, but a third is. That's a huge number. So participating in a sauna can help refold those proteins. And the reason folding is so important is because proteins are like a lock and key. They have to have a very specific configuration of space. Yeah. And if one is bent or twisted in the wrong way, it will not work.
Right.
It will not work at all.
And most of them have to be able, they can't be too rigid, because most of them, to do their job, they have to be able to move. Like enzymes, they grab something and then they change shape and, turn it into something else, or channels that open and close, muscle proteins, like actin and myosin, that actually crawl along each other. So they can't be so rigid that they can't do their job. So they have to be a little bit fluid. So one of the things that kind of starts denaturing them a little bit is heat. It's like a stress that makes us stronger, which, like exercise. It kind of starts to denature them. And in response to that, we amp up these heat shock proteins. And you can get up to a baseline level of up to 4 times your normal level if you're acclimated to the heat using your sauna regularly.
Yeah, so it's a good strategy to integrate that. But, I think I still view sauna as a relatively advanced strategy, and it's not magical and it takes time, It doesn't take a lot of time, but this is maybe something we should talk about now, because I don't know if you've looked at this. Okay. I think it's a relatively novel concept. Like any new activity, you want to start it slowly. You don't go into 180-degree sauna. No. That's not a good idea if you've not been in a sauna before.
Right.
You work slowly. And I'm thinking like 120. What do you, in your experience, or those high-tech sauna people recommend?
We usually recommend, if somebody we have a protocol that we recommend that's very conservative, just in case, for anyone that's dealing with a really heavy toxic burden or is really sick, or, most healthy, youngish, healthy people don't need to start that slowly, but we do say, I think it's 110 we say to start at, and just increase very slowly, make sure you're
110 you said?
I believe that's what we start
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So
So it's very conservative. I think most people could
yeah,
probably tolerate 110 and start
yeah,
120. But,
you can.
if you have any health problems, you definitely want to start slowly.
It better to
But
be safe. But yeah, but infrared sauna is also the 180. So infrared saunas are used at much lower temperatures. Whereas the 180 is what a traditional sauna would more typically be used at.
yeah, I'd like to dispute that because I don't think it's accurate. I think that was
Right.
actually not fraud, but it's misinformation that's being
What is?
yes, because clearly infrared does not. They say infrared penetrates. It penetrates, yes, about a millimeter or two.
You're right. You're right. That is a
It does
myth.
not go deep, and
That is a
that is
myth.
a myth.
I'm glad
And
you
it
said
really annoys the hell out of me with this industry. The
I'm
only
glad
one that does that is near infrared, and we'll discuss why I've switched shift to far. But you
Mhm.
cannot claim that far infrared penetrates. It doesn't at
People
all.
say that, and it's like one of those things that enough people just started saying it that everyone
Yeah, it's
accepts it.
wrong.
But there's no. I've dug and dug and dug and looked for
No,
any
it's simple
basis.
physics.
Any
It's not
basis.
hard. And do you know why it doesn't penetrate? It's a simple reason. It's physics.
Yeah.
Would you like to
So
know
it's
why?
absorbed right when it hits you, but it doesn't have to penetrate. What it does is it's absorbed mainly by water molecules,
Yeah,
and
so that's what it is. It's
it keeps.
absorbed, but that's why it doesn't penetrate because the water in the body
Yeah,
heats up.
but it doesn't
So
have to penetrate in order to do its
no,
job.
because you're heating up your cellular water for sure.
So what it does, it's like the sun. So the sun, the reason that if the air can
Well,
be cold and you can still feel the warmth from the sun, and
yeah, but
that's
it's
not
different than the sun. The sun has near infrared,
well.
and this
It's I believe a lot of the near infrared. It's both. It's
yeah, it's
both.
both. Yeah, but there's no
It's
question.
all
It
both.
has near,
Yeah,
mid, and far, but
yeah,
there's no near in the far infrared sauna, but it's
right.
still think superior. Maybe we can dive in there now why I switched, and but we'll get your analysis first, is
Mhm.
because I'm sure you evaluated the near infrared sauna because as I
Mhm.
said, there's so many benefits of near infrared. It's a very valuable therapy. It just
Yeah.
doesn't seem to be appropriate for sauna, though.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. It hasn't been studied in a sauna.
Well, it's
Uh,
not because of studying either.
well,
No, now actually, let me take that statement back. It is probably can be appropriate, but it's not as easy to do. And the confusion that I was under was that you would get the benefits of near infrared because there's no benefits of near infrared or far infrared sauna. It just can't be. There's none there. But there's potential benefits if you use near infrared sauna. But the reality is you're not going to get a benefit from the near infrared other than heat.
well,
And the heat is minimal
the
because most of it's
studies.
in the mid and the
Yeah,
far.
the studies that I've seen on near infrared, which I have not, I don't claim to have read all of them at all. I've probably read all the studies on far infrared out there, close
Yeah.
to it. But on near infrared, the studies are showing benefits, but in a specific dose. They're looking at what's the wavelength, what's the time, what's the power, and with lasers, to treat local
Yeah.
areas. And they've shown that, in a lot of these studies that if you're exposed to too much, it can actually do more harm than good. So
Well,
it's kind
that's
of like,
true, but that's not going to be the case in near infrared sauna, and I'll tell you why.
yeah, well, I don't know. Do they
You
know
can't.
how
No, I
much?
can tell you. I've measured. I've done the readings.
Oh, you have? Okay.
And I've owned one for many years. Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the reason. Because when you have near infrared by itself, it's not an issue. You can get really close. You can maybe even get your body on it. But try putting your body on a combined near a complete incandescent bulb that has far and mid. You will get third degree burns. You
Because
cannot get close enough to the near infrared unless you shield and somehow
okay.
filter out the far and the near, which is possible with a water filter. But
Mhm.
unless you do that, you can't get close enough to the bulb to generate enough energy, enough irradiance to go into your body to get a therapeutic dose, which is somewhere between 10 and 100 milliwatts per square centimeter.
So
So you're getting well under 10, probably single digits, if not lower than single digits.
yeah,
There's some value there, but you're not going to get photobiomodulation. It
yeah.
doesn't work because you
So
can't get close enough. So you're
that's
going
what I
to
said.
mostly the closest you can get. If you're really uh, daring, you can get to maybe a foot, but most people it's a foot and a half. You get closer to those bulbs and you will get burned. It's really
Yeah.
hot. A lot
So
of heat.
they're hotter than the far infrared. I mean,
Oh, there's no comparison. Yeah, are you kidding? Yeah, that bulb is like
I've never used a near
it's 1,000 or 2,000 degrees. It can melt most things. It'll melt plastic in a heartbeat. It's very. I mean, you can cook up those things. It's really
Yeah,
hot. It's an
but
incandescent bulb. It's 250 watts. These bulbs. So there's
Right.
a lot of energy in there, but and they do. There's no question you can heat it. In fact, if you have enough bulbs, I think they're potentially better in some ways, but certainly less convenient. And
I think the far infrared is more efficient way. Like I said, the
yeah, it
goal
is efficient
is
and
to
it's
find,
easy. It's easy.
yeah.
You get
With the near infrared, that's what I usually say. Like probably there's a therapeutic dose, and you're probably either getting no benefits or you're getting harm, unless you're right in that dose.
You mean from the near?
Yeah, from the
Yeah.
near.
See, understand if you don't already that far and mid infrared has no therapeutic benefit from a photobiomodulation where you're improving mitochondrial energy production in two
No,
ways. One
but
that we
let's
know
talk
by
about,
displacing nitric oxide from complex 4, but the other yet undiscovered way, there's a biological mechanism that is very similar to photosynthesis. I call it a biological mechanism for the time being, but there's that you can convert photons in these frequencies into electrons. Your body has the capacity to do it. So you don't get that from far infrared at all. No, but it doesn't matter. You're not really going to get it in a near infrared sauna.
but when you want photobiomodulation, you go to like a practitioner's office, right? That knows.
No, you can do it at home. Most of the good devices you can do at home. You don't have to beat up. No.
But in the sauna, yeah, you're not trying to do that. You're trying to get the benefits.
No, I thought you could. I thought you can get by with both, which is why I was a big advocate of it, because I thought you can get photobiomodulation and get a sauna detox. But I don't think that's the case. So, so let's get into how you do a sauna, though. Once you've established that you're going to, whatever you choose, if you choose far for the near infrared, you still can do it. It's just less convenient. If you have one, this doesn't mean you have to sell it. It's a decent device, but if you don't have one, I think the far infrared is certainly more convenient, easier to do. It looks better in your home. It doesn't look like a tent.
And you don't have the risks. I mean, the near infrared, it's bad for your eyes. It can cause.
Yeah, you can get burnt. I've gotten burnt many times. Not just those things. Even though there's guards on them, they get really hot and they can burn your skin for sure. Yeah. But let's talk about therapeutic dose, and I think you can gauge that. One of the ways you can gauge that is the temperature we talked about, and you recommending 110. I think you probably safely go up to 120 for most people.
Well, the goal is around the most people use them around 130. All of the studies on the benefits with the far infrared are between the low 120s and 140. There is a little bit of confusion. There's some people out there that say that, you want your infrared sauna to be 170. There's no basis for that. There's never been a study over 140.
Just because it doesn't mean a study doesn't mean it's helpful. And I happen to believe.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
I happen to be the camp. I think 170 is the optimal, but it will take most people.
It doesn't mean
certainly
it's not
more than a year, and maybe 2 years to get to that point, because you have to go up there very slowly. You have to let your body adjust to it. You don't go into 170 sauna. I don't think you should go higher than 170. Some people go to 200
with an infrared.
Not with an infrared, no. It's really hard.
The traditional sauna is very different than a traditional sauna. It's like, so picture with the infrared sauna, the infrared is heating you directly. So picture it's like if you're outside and it's a hot day, so it's 100 degrees out and you're in the shade versus the direct sun, the air is the same temperature. But with the sun, when you're in the direct sunlight, the air is the same temperature as the shade, but it feels a lot hotter. So that's what an infrared sauna is like compared to a traditional sauna.
Or a cloudy day.
And in a sauna,
you know why you don't get warm on a cloudy day?
Because the infrared is filtered.
But what stops it?
The water.
The water in the clouds.
It's absorbed by water. Yeah.
Yeah. The water blocks it. It's a filter.
Yep.
It's a filter. But near infrared comes through. You can get photobiomodulation if it's significant, because it goes right through those clouds. It doesn't stop.
Okay. Yeah, but another thing that makes the difference too is whose sauna you're in, because you don't a sauna that puts out more infrared is going to heat you better. I could tell you about our sauna and our heaters.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the high-tech sauna for a number of reasons. It's one of the few saunas that has authentically lower EMF, which is the big issue. When they first came out, almost 20 years ago now. I think it's about 20 years when they first started in the U.S. It's about the turn of the century. Virtually none of the saunas understood magnetic fields. They all had high magnetic fields. It was and no one knew it. But then it became obvious that you can't. That's dangerous. And now I believe most manufacturers have gotten the magnetic fields in reasonable range, not in biologically healthy range, like I
Yeah.
think high tech does. It's got one of the lowest magnetic fields I've seen.
It's as low
I don't
as
know what the engineering behind it, but it's really an outstanding job.
Yeah. So
And then the one that almost every sauna misses is the electric fields, and they're kind of hard to measure.
Yes, they're harder to mitigate, or it's
100%.
It's a more complicated.
Almost all the saunas I've seen have high electric fields.
Yes.
Infrared saunas.
So there's two components, right? So the EMF is the electric field and the magnetic field. Yep, exactly. There's a lot of companies that have managed to lower their magnetic fields, and they just don't mention the electric fields. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's even worse. It's fraud and deception. You want me to tell you why?
Well, I don't know if they don't know the difference.
No, they know the difference. They know the difference. You know why it's fraud and deception? They will say they are low EMF. They claim it in the electric, and here's where it's the fraud. It's legal, but it's still fraudulent, and they know it. They use standards that are conventional standards. It's like using in conventional medicine. It's the standard of care. It's the standard of care. So of course it's okay, but it's not. They're not using biologically safety standards from organizations to understand the EMF's impact on biology. So they're using traditional engineering, electrical engineering standards. So they qualify by that standard, but they're nowhere near what they need to be, and they know that, and they won't disclose it. They'll use that to defend themselves and not doing the appropriate engineering to make their products safe. Yeah, and they can get away with it legally because the traditional legal system does not understand that there's danger from electric fields.
Well, there's not a lot of. I don't think there's any standards that you have to meet for that sort of thing. Like,
no, there's none. But that doesn't mean the standards don't exist. They exist.
Right. But I mean, the standards, like official government standards, tend to lag way behind.
Oh, yeah. The government does not believe in this at all because they're controlled by industry. So there's no incentive for them to adopt these standards at all. Right. In fact, it's a negative incentive.
Right.
So people need to understand that because they're going to do shopping. They will read the claims and say, "Oh, it's low by these standards." But you got to go use Google, use an AI. My favorite is Anthropic's Claude. Go in there and dialogue with them about these standards, and they'll tell you this is well-known information. This is not biologically safety standards. These are engineering standards, which have nothing to do with biology. Nothing. Yeah.
And I mean, those companies, they won't even, talk about the electric fields. It won't be on their.
Most of them do. They're not that foolish, but they do it deceptively, which is a problem.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's not the case for high tech, which is why I own one of these saunas.
Specialty. Yeah, Eric, our president, Eric, is he's an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
He designed and patented the technology.
Yeah. It really is, from a EMF perspective, the safest sauna that I know of. That's not quite true because the sauna space is safe too from an electrical perspective. It's just more difficult to use. But truthfully, I want to talk about temperature a little bit too because I was using the sauna for many years, 5, 6, 7 years. I know, a long time. Mm-hmm. So I'm quite familiar with how hot it gets you. Mm-hmm. And I used 8 of the bulbs. I had 2 kilowatts of bulbs, which most people only have 1 kilowatt. I doubled the amount of bulbs. So I would get really hot. I would typically get to at least 102, 103. And it's hard to measure the temperature in a sauna. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why I'm glad I have the high-tech sauna, because you can see a number. Mm-hmm. In an infrared sauna, it's so directional that it's hard to know what the temperature is.
Yeah. Well, and heat rises, so it's not going to be completely.
Yeah, so it depends on when you put the sensor, right? So the bottom, the top, is it in front of the bulbs, is it behind the bulbs? Yeah. But also, I don't know.
When you're getting the infrared, the air temperature doesn't matter. It's not the only thing that matters. So,
No, it does with the incandescent saunas. There's a lot of difference when the bulbs shine on you. I mean, the bulbs shine on you, you will be sweating on your front and your back will be dry. Oh, you'll turn around, it's the exact opposite.
I was going to say, you'll sweat in our saunas. But...
No, you do, but not as much as in my experience in the near-infrared sauna. Okay. I try to push it. I can only get your sauna up to 154.
It's tough.
And then it drops to like 150 as soon as you open the door to get in.
Yeah.
I got to talk to Eric about adding some more heaters. I want to get mine to 170.
Well, like I said, all of the incredible...
I know it doesn't matter, but you can still get benefit from it.
You can, but you can get benefits. I mean, there's so many incredible health benefits, so many studies, and they're all under 140. So.
Yeah, that's good to know, but I just didn't mean that's the optimal.
Okay.
So I think we should discuss a strategy to increase. So you start at 110. I think you got to go up slowly. I think
Well, that's, yeah,
maybe
me
2 degrees a week.
we I would have to go back and look exactly what our protocol, because it really, for an average healthy person just buying a sauna for their home gym, you don't have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go that slow. But I think it has, yeah, it's not a week, but it might be like 2 degrees every time or every
To
other
go up
time.
2 degrees.
I can pull it up now, but
Yeah, you got to go up slowly. I think
but
2 degrees
yeah,
a week is a good
yeah,
strategy. 8 degrees a month, 10 degrees a month,
yeah.
somewhere in that range. You don't want to go up much more quickly.
And there is a maximum benefits you can reach. So the goal when you're trying to get the health benefits, as efficiently as possible, the goal is you're trying to reach a state of being heat acclimated. So when you're acclimated to the heat, its physiologic state comes with some physiologic changes. You have a lower core body temperature at rest. You have a lower heart rate. You have a higher stroke volume. You have an increased plasma volume. So a lot of the same things that you get from exercise. Usually,
Yeah, but
you're heat acclimated.
I
And
wouldn't say that lower core body temperature is helpful. I think you really
that's
want a
not.
higher core body temperature because the
That's
core body temperature is related to your thyroid function. And when you have
so.
impaired thyroid function, it goes down.
It's
That's
not
not a
that.
good sign.
Yeah, it's not that you want a core body temperature that's low, but that's being in a state of being heat acclimated comes
Yeah.
with so many health benefits. So you also in that state, you can have up to a 4 times normal level of heat shock proteins.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
and they've
good.
done studies showing that you're more resistant. All of your tissues are more resistant to damage and better able to repair themselves. You're just
Yeah.
hardier. So we call it, yeah, and that's like, love to tell you about our new smart sauna that really will. It's this brand new, incredible technology that helps you to get there as efficiently as
Yeah, I'm
possible.
not convinced of the smart sauna technology.
I
I
know
think
you're
it's just
not.
simple sauna is good.
I know you're not, but I would love to tell you about it anyway.
Well, we got so many other things to talk about.
Yeah.
I think just a regular sauna is all you need. The other stuff,
Well, that's
I'm
all you
not
need.
convinced.
Yes, it's you can
It's kind of
get
you're going to
this.
get most of the benefit. I mean, I
So
could get it, and there's really no extra charge for me to get, and I chose not to because I didn't think I
I
needed it.
know, we heard.
Yeah.
But maybe after I tell you about it, you're going to be calling.
Well, let's go into the other things too, because I really want this to be a benefit for everyone watching.
Yeah.
So, we talked about the temperature, the absolute temperature, and your temperature. But one of the other things that you can measure, I think, is a really good barometer. This is a little bit more challenging, but it's how much you're sweating. Well, you're going to say,
Yes.
how can I measure my
And the
sweat?
more
Well,
you
you
use
can.
it, the more you use it, the more you sweat. I mean, when I'm
Yeah.
using it regularly, I get out of the habit sometimes and don't use it. But if I'm using it really regularly, I can take off my tank top and wring it out in the sink when I'm done.
We should be able to. Yeah. How much water, how much sweat do you think you should
So
have?
a fully heat acclimated person can sweat up to a liter every half hour, which that sounds like so
Well,
much.
I've done more than that.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
done 2
it's
liters
a
in
lot.
a half hour.
And that's part of being heat acclimated. And it's not that
Yeah.
sweating is a benefit because you sweat out toxins, but
Yeah.
it's a sign that you are.
Yeah, and you're probably wondering how we can measure 2 liters. You'd have to like soak up
That'd be
every
hard
drop,
to
and
measure
no,
because
because
it just
your sweat
evaporates.
evaporates. So you're not going to measure that. You weigh yourself naked before you go in the
You can do
sauna,
that.
and then you
But
weigh yourself naked when you come out.
you can do that, and you have to measure how much you're drinking, of course. But yeah.
Well, assuming you're not drinking during the time, of course. I mean,
I
that's an
drink
assumption. But
at least a
but
full one of these when I'm in the sauna.
yeah, I like to drink before I go in this. I don't drink in the sauna.
Okay.
Especially.
But you could take that into
Show me the bottle you're drinking in the sauna. Let me look at it more carefully in front of
Uh-oh.
put it in front of
Something.
the video keeps shot out and put it closer to your face. Is that glass or plastic?
That's plastic.
Okay. All right. We'll put that down. We're going to have
It's
a
at least
nice little
BPA.
dialogue. No, when you put that, what are you sauna at? 130, 140?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
one of those
So
somewhere in
do you
there.
have any idea what that does to the plastic and the
Yes.
water in it?
Yep, I do.
All right. Tell me what
Well,
what happens.
it makes it, the heat makes it break down, and I know that. Yeah, as I said it when I started, it's at least BPA free, but I know that doesn't mean it's
No,
free.
that is nonsense. That's a lie. That is a marketing gimmick. There are at least a dozen other bisphenols. BPA is short for bisphenols.
Yeah.
And BPA is bisphenol A. And then there's S, and there's F, and there's T, and there's Z. And there's many permutations.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's BPA free means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. It's so hard to control in this world.
No, that's not an excuse. No, it is. Yes, it is.
I'm not saying
No,
it as an
listen,
excuse.
I'm telling you, I'm going to use this to pivot because I think this is one of the justifications why everyone needs a sauna. And I'll tell you in a moment. Okay.
Mhm.
We have, I forgot the specific number, but it's many millions of tons. I don't know the specific number, and I should have looked at it before I started this conversation. But it's many millions of tons. It is increasing. And this plastic is in our environment, and it's, I believe, one of the major reasons we need sauna, because of the bisphenols, the phthalates, and all the other accumulated toxins that attach to the plastics before it breaks down. Do you know how much plastic we're eating every week? The average person?
I think I heard a credit card amount every year.
Credit card, yes, that's right. About 15
every year,
grams.
right? Is that,
No, every week.
Really?
Every week, not every year. Every week.
Yeah, that's disturbing.
This is an existential threat to humanity. Do you know how long it takes for plastics to break down?
Oh, a long time.
How long?
I don't know that.
Take a guess. And don't feel bad because this information has been hidden from you as a medical professional. They don't want you to know this.
I mean, it probably varies by the plastic, but I mean, I would say
it does for sure.
Order of hundreds of years.
So what did you say? Hundreds of years?
Hundreds of years.
Are you curious? Are you serious?
I don't know.
You're right. It is hundreds of years.
Okay.
In most plastics, it's 500 years. 500 years.
Yeah.
So,
we still have.
And actually, when it's not broken down, it's relatively safe.
And there's a lot of toxins that just have such long half-lives. You know that 85% of people in this country have DDE, 85%, which is a metabolite of DDT, which was banned in the 70s. So 50 years later, 85%.
Yes. And
so, I mean, there's,
do you know how DDT, DDE, and plastics, bisphenols, and phthalates affect, which are xenoestrogens? Do you know how they impact your biology? What is the mechanism?
Yeah.
I don't think you do.
Not exactly. I know what they do. I mean,
No, tell me what the molecular biological mechanism is.
I believe the DDT does that disrupt your DNA? Is that a DNA?
It does eventually, but why?
RNA? Well, it causes oxidative damage is one big thing. That's what they all do that, and that really just leads to aging.
Well, the primary mechanism to destroy biology is they increase intracellular calcium.
Okay.
And when that happens, they increase superoxide and nitric oxide, and it forms peroxynitrite, which is a very pernicious toxin. That's the oxidative stress that damages DNA and proteins and cell membranes.
It damages everything. Yeah, that's basically
but eventually, that destroys mitochondrial function.
So,
and cellular energy production, which is what the sauna doesn't do. It does the opposite. I mean, that's why you want these molecules out of your body.
The accumulation of oxidative damage basically is aging. I mean, that's what, over time we just collect all these little, damages, and
I think that's a symptom, and that's not the cause.
Well, the cause of aging.
I wrote a whole book on this.
What's that?
I wrote a whole book on this with 2,000 references, so I'm pretty confident of the theory. But the reason is that you're not making enough cellular energy. When you don't have enough cellular energy, you can't have protection against the oxidative stresses.
There's lots of things that cause.
So that's the foundational causes. And these DDEs and the plastics, the microplastics, the nanoplastics, they all have the same mechanism. They're identical. That's how they destroy biology. And then they decrease cellular energy.
I'd love to tell you a little bit about heat shock proteins and mitochondria.
And heat shock proteins and what?
And mitochondria.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Okay, so
I think they probably, you're going to say they stimulate PGC1 alpha and increase mitochondrial biogenesis.
Yes, they don't stimulate it. I believe that one. I guess it would be one. Yeah, they activate it. The heat shock proteins. They block the inflammatory markers, JNK, and some other inflammatory markers. But so these mice that they bred to overexpress heat shock protein, they did some. I mean, there's some really cool studies on mice that they've bred with strains of mice with elevated heat shock proteins, 50% more mitochondria. So these mice, they have two groups, controls and the overexpressors. They fed them high fat, high calorie diet for, I believe it was 10 days. They both ate the same amount of food. The control mice got fat and they got prediabetes. The heat shock rats or mice did not. They're eating the same amount of calories.
How do they increase their heat shock proteins through heat? Heat exposure?
No, this one, there's a lot where they do it through heat. This particular study was a genetic strain.
Oh, genetic.
But there's another one that they did through heat that they showed is similar. But this strain, 50% more mitochondria, and over twice the basal metabolic rate.
Yeah.
Just from the heat shock proteins, the increase in mitochondria, they increase your endurance too. These mice, so through this one through heat, they heated a group of mice, and they were old mice, so they had decreased endurance. And they heated them for, I think it was 2 weeks, and they had a 23% increased endurance. So they ran them on a treadmill, no exercise training, just the heat. And they ran them on a treadmill.
Yeah, that's a good reason to do this. Now, if you're going to consider this for you or your family, I mean, there's several ways you can get the sauna. You could be a member of a health club and you can get a sauna there. Most likely that's not going to be too beneficial because you're not going to be able to control the temperature as readily, and it's going to take a lot more time. It's inefficient. You have to go there. But I think most importantly, the reason you use the sauna is to detox. That's one of the primary reasons. And the heat shock protein benefits, those are the two primary benefits from my perspective. But if you're detoxing and you're having these toxins come out of your body, they really exit your body in sweat. They really do. You can measure them.
There's a lot of the toxins are at higher concentrations in your sweat than they are in your blood. And the plastic. Of course.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So knowing that, why would you go into a sauna that someone else was excreting their toxins in? I mean, that's worse than using someone's toothbrush.
Gross.
It's a hygiene problem. So I don't think you should use a commercial sauna in a health club. I really don't.
It's a lot harder to use it regularly too. I mean, it's so much.
Yeah. I mean, some people can because they go to the health club all the time and it's there and they can do it. But I think really having it in your house is the safest. And maybe you can comment on what your recommendation is to capture this sweat, because I think it's really wise strategy to use towels to capture your sweat because you don't want to be contaminating your sauna. Because if other family members do it, then it's going to be an issue too. And you could even potentially use ozone in your sauna. You don't want to breathe it while it's in there, but you can detox your sauna, and the ozone will accelerate the destruction of the toxins.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of that. I haven't done research on the ozone thing, but
ozone's pretty effective.
I can tell you about the towel. So we usually say, and what I do is you put a folded towel on the bench and one on the floor, and then I have a third in there that I'm wiping off as I go, and then you can just wash the towel. It keeps it clean.
Yeah, and you don't totally want to capture it. Otherwise, I think after time, especially certain environments, you'll start growing mold in your sauna if you don't. But even more importantly, you're going to have toxins there, and they're hard to get out.
Yeah.
It's real. This is not fantasy. You're not doing it just for looks. You're doing it for biology purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're dry saunas, so they're not as prone to mold. But I mean, I guess if you sweat enough in it and don't.
Well, you have moisture in there, and there may be mold in the home or the environment, and so they can get in there and they can grow. I've seen it before.
Yeah,
so
that's one.
You want to keep your sauna dry for sure. You do not want to have any sweat in your sauna.
Yeah. And it's unfinished on the inside. It's unfinished because we don't want
It's a beautiful sauna. I mean, it's really elegant. I love the look of it. The design is nice.
We're so careful about everything that goes into it. Yeah. It's 100% solid.
It's really well done.
Most saunas will put plywood, on the top of the roof, the back wall, which off-gases formaldehyde. So we're really careful about stuff like that. Yeah. It's really.
I've got to talk to Eric about getting some more heaters in there to get up to 170. We're going to see how we can do that. It's not good for everyone, but
I mean, you don't need that high, but if you really want it,
I like it.
I saw a YouTube video.
I want to get all those mitochondria going, get the benefits of the biogenesis. I want more heat shock proteins. Four times isn't good enough.
You don't. You can get the goal once you're fully heat acclimated. It's hard to get much better. So our smart sauna, here's what it does. Let me just tell you real quick. The smart sauna will help you to get fully heat acclimated, and we call it sauna fitness is what we call the heat acclimated, where you have the higher level of heat shock proteins at baseline, all the health benefits. It's basically like being a fully conditioned athlete, right? When you're heat acclimated. Our smart sauna will get you there as efficiently as possible. So it knows what your core body temperature is doing for each session.
How does it know that?
So based on some things you tell it when you first enter your information, you set up your profile. And then the information that we used, or Eric and his team used to teach it these things, come from a lot of it, the research, the body temperature. Our whole company spent about, more than a year, taking our temperature every 5 minutes in our sauna, which was not the most relaxing sauna session. So kind of glad
No,
to
it's not
test
that hard
that.
though.
But we did
What temperature were you hitting?
after a while, not as high. I mean, I would get to, I think at the beginning, I got up to 101.
So were you getting over 100 even?
Oh, I would get over 100. Yeah, almost every time.
Okay.
But yeah, so based on that, so it knows what your core body temperature is doing. So it needs to know in order to get you there.
Based on the correlations from the data that you guys generated. Because it's not measuring it.
And then no, it's not measuring it. But yeah, based on what somebody, height, weight, activity level, some other things, based on what we expect it to do, but, based on the temperature and your session duration. So it has to know whether you're activating heat shock proteins, and it knows that based on the research and the core body temperature. And then it has to know the best schedule, the best interval between sessions in order to get you acclimated. So there's a big variety in how fast you can get
so
there.
what's the range that you have for the frequencies? Is that something I wanted to discuss with you? Because I don't think that more is not better, at all.
No, and that's another thing. You can use it too much. So they've shown that.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning it. Because
it's not too much. If you want to use it twice a day because you like it, it's relaxing. But based on the research, there's no extra benefit to that.
No, it might be counterproductive, depending on what the intensity they're using. Now, if you're using it at 120, that's not an issue.
Maybe.
But if you get up to higher levels, you have to be careful. I don't think you should use it every day. I think.
Well, I mean, you have to. Yeah. Well,
the Finn studies would suggest that because the more days a week you use it, the better the benefit. But I think it's a different sauna, and I dispute that. I think there's other variables that confounded that conclusion. Well, I think the optimal is probably about 3 to 4 times a week.
So once you're acclimated, you can maintain that with about every 3 to 4 days. But while you're getting acclimated, you're going to get there a lot faster if you use it. So you can you can become fully heat acclimated using it daily for 10 to 11 days. If you use it every 2 to 3 days, it's going to take you a month.
Well, that's good to know. So when you start it, the other, if you're going to start at a lower temperature, the variable we haven't talked about is the time you're in the sauna. Mm-hmm. So it would seem if you're at 120, 20 minutes, you need more than 20 minutes. You're going to have to take like 40 minutes or something because it's the area under the curve, the exposure to cumulative heat.
One study did show the area under the curve matters. Yeah. But I mean, also your temperature, when you're just starting out, your temperature is going to rise more than it would if you're, used to it,
right.
more acclimated.
But that's a good strategy. So you can do it more frequently at the lower temperatures. And as your temperature rises, you need less time in the sauna and you need to do it less frequently.
And you don't obviously, so the smart sauna, you'll get in and it'll, set it for you.
Give you a recommendation.
What it recommends. And then obviously you don't have to do that. And if you're ever not feeling well, we always say, of course, get out of it.
Imagine that. You should trust what your body tells you.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I don't know. Mine gives me bad advice sometimes.
No, you're gonna get in trouble if you stop listening to your body. That's for sure.
I've gotten in trouble before.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Biological trouble is a problem.
Yes, we always say, of course, if you're not feeling well, you don't have to do what the smart sauna says. You can ignore it. But if you want to know, you're ready to sauna again, it knows when the last time you saunaed. If you've gone down, if you take a little break, your deacclimation depends completely on what you've done before that. So if you've been fully acclimated for a year, you're not going to start decaying for a while. If you just got acclimated, you're going to drop off. So all of that, you can do that on your own, but the smart sauna just makes it easier. Biohackers, people who want to know exactly where they are and keep track of exactly what they've done, or people who are brand new and don't know how to use it.
Yeah, I've also reached a conclusion that not all people need saunas. Everyone needs the benefits of sauna for sure. But there are people, and I don't necessarily encourage this, even though I did it when I was younger, is intensive cardio, especially in the summer, where you're sweating. I mean, I remember many runs where I would just sweat more than I would in a sauna.
I'm a runner. I love it.
If you're running, then you don't need the sauna as much because the key is you have to sweat, and the only reason you're sweating is because your internal body temperature is elevated.
And there was another study that brings me right to that. One of my favorite studies with mice and running. So there's 2 groups of mice. One of them, they ran on little mouse treadmills. It was 30 minutes, 5 times a week for 3 weeks. And the other group, they heated up in little mouse saunas for 30 minutes, 5 times a week for 3 weeks. They both lost the same amount of fat. So they lost about 40% of their total body fat. Then there was another group that they did both. They ran them and then put them in the treadmill. They lost, what was the number? 60, 70, 73, I think, percent. They lost about almost double. So, to an extent, there is a benefit, but you're right, you do max out on the benefits though.
Yeah, if you're sweating, I mean, that's the sign of sweating. I mean, the same thing. You should quantitate your sweat, measure pre and post, and naked weight, so that you don't have any variables of clothing. Obviously, do it in privacy, but do it accurately, and don't drink water. If you're drinking water you run, you can't do it because unless you calculate the water you're drinking, you measure that.
Yeah, of course you want to stay hydrated. That's the biggest thing.
But I still haven't left you off the hook for bringing that damn plastic bottle in your sauna. You got to promise me you're never going to do that again. Bring a glass sauna into your sauna.
I spent all this time setting up with my nice pink sauna.
It's what?
Plastic. I spent all this time setting up with my pretty pink sauna, and I have plastic.
You did. You didn't. You got to be. The devil's in the details. The devil's in the details, Jenna. Really. No, because the microplastic is one of my new crusades. Is microplastics. It's most people don't understand how pervasively damaging this is. I think the biggest damage is seed oils. But microplastics is coming close behind. Those are the 1-2 punch that takes most people out prematurely because they both destroy mitochondrial function. Yeah. So you have to. Yes, you can detox it with a sauna, but why would you want to add more microplastics into your system? Yeah. And in this case, it's not the microplastics. You're actually getting the actual chemicals that construct the plastic, the phthalates and the BPAs. Right. So don't put your food in plastic. Don't put your water in plastic. Yeah.
All toxins, I mean, they cause inflammation.
Yeah, and it's better if it's cold water and it's like winter out, then it's not so much a problem. But you're in a 130-degree sauna with water.
All right. I'll get a glass water bottle.
It doesn't have to be glass. It could be a stainless steel thermos, like a lot of you can have cold water. And I mean, the Yeti would be the classic example. They're just miracles, those devices. You could be in that 180-degree sauna with a Yeti on the cover on, and that thing would still be ice cold.
I'm going to do it.
It does not penetrate that. It's an insulated container. Really. I mean, it's a miracle of modern science that they're able to do what they do.
All right,
but the stainless steel won't be a problem.
You told me to. I'm going to do it.
Well, good. Yeah, I want you to be healthy. You're doing all this good things, so you don't want to sabotage yourself with something. It's easily fixable. Easily.
Okay. I'll order one this afternoon.
Yeah, just get a nice one. I mean, the glass obviously breaks. Stainless steel doesn't, and I use a stainless steel one all the time. I don't bring mine in the sauna because I usually hydrate quite a bit. You know what I do to hydrate? Because you have to have electrolytes in your sauna too. So you just don't want to have pure water because that can make you actually worse. So we sell some, but there's a lot of people who make them, but at least put salt in it. But other electrolyte, magnesium, potassium, those types of things would be useful. But that makes it better and makes sure that you don't have problems. Now, what do you have you studied the supplements or the binders that you could take when the sauna? Because one of the benefits of going to sauna is you're going to excrete the toxins, but most of the toxins are what we call POPs, persistent organic pollutants, and most all of those are fat soluble. Yeah. So they come out of the fat, and you collect them, but you can collect them. I mean, you don't want to collect them in your sweat; they're obviously out of your body, but you're going to secrete some into your intestine, which is why you want the binders. So what type of binders are you recommending, and what the timing?
Yeah, so I don't do as much research on the nutrients. We actually have one of our product specialists, Tristan, is a nutritionist, so he's got a master's in nutrition. So he does more of the, I usually ask him when I have a nutritional question. We have talked about the binders though, and Tristan has brought that up. So that might be in the works as something that we might.
Yeah, the binders. It's simple. It doesn't have to be hard. You just have to get a high quality. Activated charcoal, which is probably the best binder you can get. Yeah. I mean, as an emergency pediatrician, I mean, sure, a lot of these kids would swallow things they should have never swallowed and would have been dead. I'm sure you saved many children's lives with activated charcoal. Is that correct?
Kids hated it and it looked gross, but yeah.
It saves their life.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it will clearly works for acute emergencies that will kill you. And here's another good hint. If many people get food poisoning and they get these atrocious diarrheas that are just, and feel sick as a dog, fatigued, tired, headachy. And that's largely because of the endotoxin. But activated charcoal is magnificent for absorbing endotoxin for food poisoning. It could literally turn your life around within minutes almost. You take enough. What were you using in the emergency room? Like 10 grams, 20 grams?
Oh, I don't remember exactly.
Don't remember. A while ago. Okay. But you don't need that much. You don't need heroic doses in the sauna. Maybe 2 grams,
Yeah.
as long as it's away from meals, an hour before or 2 hours after, and preferably both. And this way, you're not going to absorb your supplements, any medications you might be taking, or the nutrients from the food. I mean, if you take activated charcoal and you go eat a meal, say goodbye to the nutrition from that meal. It's going to be bound up to the charcoal. That's what it does. It binds things like a magnet.
Yeah, it binds a lot. There was very few things. There was a few things that didn't work for. I forget now.
Yeah, but so it's good. It's good and it's inexpensive, so it's a simple thing.
We definitely talked about kind of maybe bringing that back in. We used to sell supplements, actually.
And you probably know too that one of the benefits, at least from the plastic exposure, you know where the plastic toxins go, don't you? What tissues do they attract to?
The plastics. Well, I mean, I know they're hormone dysfunction.
Yeah, but they're fat soluble. So do you think they might wind up in the fat cells? Yeah. So if you have extra adipose tissue, as the majority of people, the vast majority of people do, I think 70, depends on the state you're in, but it's approximately 75% of the country is overweight. 42% is obese. That's massively overweight. So they're carrying a lot of fat, and there's certainly cosmetic complications from that, but there's also real physical ones because that's where you store all these toxins. And
also another huge one with that is that fat causes inflammation, which decreases mitochondrial function. It all comes back to
it's a lot of bad things, and definitely doesn't mean fat is necessarily bad, but you don't want excess. You don't really want excess of anything, including excess sauna. Excess sauna is not good either.
Too much of a good thing. It's not.
Yeah, that's right.
Not always better. Really yeah, that's true.
So, no, you don't know, but we're recording this interview in the middle of summer, which is probably the worst season to even think about getting a sauna because people are getting ready to celebrate 4th of July, or they have celebrated it, and they're swimming. The last thing you're thinking about is getting warm because it's already warm outside, maybe too warm, and they have to put the AC in. So why would I go into a sauna? And that's why saunas tend to be most popular in the winter. That's when most of the sales are because people want to get warm and get a benefit from it. But I encourage people to reconsider that. I think it's something you need, ideally, if you're doing the basics. This is not like a magic bullet. It's a beautiful adjunct to a healthy lifestyle already. But if you're not doing the basics, like your nutrition, getting movement in, walking in, being in the sun, making sure your vitamin D levels are optimal, some basic stuff. I mean, not rocket science. But if you're not doing that or not exercising, then why would you consider using an advanced technique if you're not doing the basics? But I'm in love with saunas. I will be doing it the rest of my life. I think it's important if you're doing the basics. It's crazy not to use it. I mean, it's just so compelling. And I would encourage anyone who doesn't have a health tech sauna, or for that matter, a sauna space sauna, which is equally low in EMF. They're both close to zero. They're basically there's no adverse biological mechanism from my understanding of EMFs. I did write a book on it from either of those saunas. They're just clean. They're really clean. So if you don't have one of those, then I would seriously look at the EMF components of the ones that you have or one are considering, and then use the large language models or a search engine if you want to identify to see what standards these companies are claiming that they're abiding by, and you'll find out that they're fake standards. They don't mean squat. They're not biological standards. So I really think, otherwise, most of the saunas are pretty similar. The clear advantage that high tech health would have would be that it's EMF free, truly EMF free. And I kind of learned that initially. I went to what I thought was a really good clinic in Mexico. It probably is one of the best, but I was a bit disappointed. I found some of the practices that they were doing, but it's Sauna in Mexico, in Tijuana, west coast of Mexico. And that's exactly the type of sauna they have there. Fortunately, it did not get to 150. I don't know if it had an old version or something. It was only getting to like 140.
They just bought new saunas from us.
They did?
Since we opened. So since the late 90s, they had the same saunas, and they were
I must have seen the old one.
Great. They called us. They're like, I think it's just time to replace them. It's been like years. So,
it was about time. So that was good but I actually brought my equipment there to measure them. They were clean. They were absolutely clean. So I was pleasantly surprised. I said, oops, yep, this high-tech health sauna is a good sauna. So it's good. So is there anything else you'd like to expand on other than, because you did the smart sauna now, which is good. Yeah, I think it's helpful if it's like a little cheat
not
sheet.
for everyone.
I mean, it's not. There's no downsides. It'll cost a little bit extra, but if you want some help in figuring it out, it's nice to know that
some people just want to know
some nice research to kind of give you some estimates of what's going to happen and sort of. But you can still do it without. But that's one feature. Anything else you'd like to mention?
Well, I was going to tell you about the heaters putting out more infrared. Can I tell you real quick? We did an experiment.
This is far and mid, I'm assuming, right?
This is just far. So our heaters, our heaters are different. They're a different design than most.
Tell me why they're different.
Yeah, so most saunas use the carbon-based heater. They cover the whole inside of the walls. Our heaters, they're different because they are designed by Eric, who is a brilliant engineer, and he designs the best in the sauna industry. They're a high-grade metal. It's a stainless steel rod with a polished aluminum reflective backing. So for one thing, they run at a higher temperature, so they're putting out more infrared. Our heaters run around 400 something. The carbon heaters.
They run around what now?
440, I think was somewhere around there.
440 degrees at the sauna?
So no, the surface of the heater.
The surface of the heater, okay.
So it's putting out, so that the higher temperatures mean it's putting out more infrared compared to the carbon heaters run around 200 degrees.
Did not know that. Are there fans in the sauna? I mean, I know there's a fan at the top of the sauna, but there are fans to spread the heat out?
No, but so infrared, so it acts like light, right? So it goes out in all directions. And then we have something else that's important about our heaters is we have that reflective backing. So the only thing that reflects infrared better than our polished aluminum backing would be a precious metal, which would be.
Do you know which one? Do you know which one?
Was it gold?
It's gold, yes. It's so effective. That's what the NASA uses on some of its satellites, or when they're capturing far infrared radiation from these distant galaxies. They use gold as the reflector. Yeah.
We didn't think people would want to pay for gold heaters.
No, it's not necessary. It's marginally better. NASA can't afford it because they're spending our money, right? But gold would be better. That's the ultimate near all infrared reflectors is gold. I think silver is close.
Yeah, but so it makes all of the infrared then is directed towards the cabin because it reflects off the back. Versus the carbon heaters, it goes, you're losing half of it into the walls.
Wow.
So we did an experiment where we heated. So like I was saying, that 130 will feel very different if you're double or 3 times the amount of infrared versus like 130 plus infrared feels a lot hotter than just 130. So we heated 2 beakers of water. We put one in our sauna in front of our heater at 130 degrees and the other in front of a carbon heater sauna at 130 degrees. Ours heated 34% faster. So that's the same thing that's going on in your body. You're getting a 34% increased heating, increased rate of rise, which is one of those factors.
Well, I apologize for expressing some disappointment for the only getting to 154. But that 154 is higher than almost all the infrared saunas. Most of them don't get beyond 130. What's your experience? 120, 130?
Yeah. Huh?
What the other saunas, and not naming companies, but generally, what's been your experience? What's the highest that they get to?
I've never used another infrared sauna other than ours, but I've heard that, they don't get as hot. I've heard even there's one of them that they say that, if your room doesn't start, if you're not starting at 70 degrees, it won't even get to 130. And that's the carbon panel heaters, they don't.
Yeah. So, I mean, for that, that's aside from this concerns, which many people watching this may not have a concern about EMF. I think it's incorrect. But if you don't, then you just pure basics, the physics. I mean, this sauna heats up better. There's only one other sauna that I had that were heated to 170 consistently, which is why I want to get Eric to do a version for me that heats to 170. So I like 170. Then you have rivers of sweat. Okay. That's when I can get to 2 quarts of water.
And what happens when you get acclimated to 170? Then you'll need it at 190.
I think I'm not going to go above 170. 170 is good. I don't want to barbecue myself, right? But I like 170. Okay. I think it's hard. Again, it's hard to measure a near infrared sauna because I've never been able to figure it out. What is the temperature? I know. I feel a lot hotter in that sauna than I do in.
It feels hotter. Yeah, sauna. We have that. We put that video on our website. Check it out. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, because those bulbs get I think it's well over. I mean, yours is 400 degrees. Those bulbs are well over 1,000.
And the other thing, when you're sitting in front of our heater, it's all of that infrared is going into you versus the carbon heater. You're only sitting in front of a little portion of the infrared that's coming out. So really,
it's a great design. It's wonderful. It's definitely one of the best saunas out there. There's no question. I think it would be the best if we get up to 170.
Right. Well, we'll see what we can do. We might have to make most people don't.
Please understand. I know I've been persistent about that, but it's a personal issue. I think there's probably maybe 2% of the people watching this would benefit from that. Almost everyone is going to be benefiting from what Jenna would say. It was 130 is fine, 140, maybe 150, but you don't need to go to 170. I've been doing sauna for close to 20the years, so.
I haven't been doing it that long.
I'm a veteran, so I like to get the high temperatures.
Okay, gotcha. The highest I've used it is 145, and that was too much.
Oh, that was too much?
It was too much, yeah.
I'm telling you, at 154, I'm just like, come on, when's the heat going to come? I mean, it's not enough. I'm feeling deprived. I'm telling you that. I really do.
Okay. I have heard that before occasionally. Some people,
Yeah, I mean, and there's guys like, now Laird Hamilton, I know. I think he goes over boiling. I think he's in the 200s. But that's not a far infrared. No, that's
okay. So that's totally different though. Traditional saunas, yes, they're typically used like almost 200 or over.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I would find that very uncomfortable. I've been to traditional saunas, I think. So that have a heater. That heater isn't far infrared, I don't think.
So no, it's just traditional saunas just heat you by convection, by heating the air. So it's like,
to me, that's a lot more comfortable. The experience in a far infrared sauna is much more relaxed, more relaxed.
Air you're breathing, so it heats your body, compared to there's I found on the traditional.
Yeah, your body heats. That's a good point. Your body heats. It's not the air temperature.
But the air you're breathing isn't as hot, which makes it feel more comfortable. Yeah. So makes it feel less stuffy.
Yeah, and I think probably you may want to discuss the value of putting some protective covering on your head, because you really don't want to get your head that hot. I mean, there's not a lot of value to getting your brain overheated, or your testicles if you're a man. There have some benefits. You might want to protect those two areas. And in fact, some saunas have it to the point where your head is out of the sauna.
Yeah, but do you think that I don't know if head protection would help. They make sauna hats, actually.
Yeah, traditionally the Eastern Europeans have, and the Russians specifically, have these wool hats that you can wear. I've got one.
The testicles.
My dog loves wool sauna caps. He just shreds them. I call them the shredder.
We're gonna get them. Get them for our company. There was one we found that said Sauna Boss.
You can have ice caps too. They're used for headaches.
Yeah.
So you can put them in the freezer and you get cold. So that's what I use personally.
The testicles, though, that is reversible based on what I've read. They said it does decrease your sperm count while you're using it.
Yeah, but it's probably not. I mean, that's the reason why your testes are outside your body, not inside, because they don't like even 98 degrees, right?
Yeah. It decreases while you're using it. It does decrease.
Yeah.
But they've shown, based on what I've read, it goes back up.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been great. I'm a big fan. I love the high tech sauna. And I actually, many people might be surprised, but I did convert from the near infrared. Not that it's bad. It's just it's not dangerous either if you're careful. But I've been burned a few times, and one of the ways that you can do is you could use the near infrared sauna in your sauna. I was considering doing that, but I'm going to talk to Eric and get another heater because I really like it hotter. And you could throw the I'd had a far infrared sauna before yours. It was like many years ago. Yeah. And it did get to 170. Yeah. But they lied.
There was I saw a video on YouTube of this guy, and I think it was a Clearlight sauna. It was a different company that he was using, but he it was a how to get your sauna hotter than it gets. Yeah. And it was I mean, you would have to do it differently than him because he had like Wi-Fi gadgets going everywhere. Enough was crazy, but he also he insulated it. Was part of it though. He insulated.
Yeah, you can insulate it for sure. But what this sauna got up to 170. It really did. It was a far infrared sauna. But they lied and said it was no EMF, and it wasn't. It had high electrical fields, really high electrical fields.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to be in the sauna when it was on. So I would heat it up to 170, and then I would Then I would go in and I would turn it off so there's no like EMF, and I would put the sauna space bulbs in there. Okay. Take out the seat and I just use it like that. Okay. So it was a hybrid approach. Okay. But I was just disappointed. My experience is common. These companies that maybe they do it sincerely, or maybe they do it deceptively. I don't know.
Some of them,
nevertheless, they're doing it, and it is common. Is the common practice to misrepresent what they're doing,
I think some of them might not even know the difference. Like we're unusual for a sauna company. We all have really strong science backgrounds. We all really understand the science, do a ton of research. That's not typical. So I think there's some companies that may just not know. They just don't know the science.
Yeah, marketing is a big thing, but you want the goods, and I think high tech health delivers it. So I'm really excited. I have one. It makes my life a lot easier, a lot simpler, real easy to use. You just press it. I actually figured out. I thought there was a timer on the on switch, and there's a timer, but you can't set it against the time. You can't have it go on a certain time. So the workaround for that is I use an alarm on my phone. I know I'm going to do my sauna at 10:30 in the morning, and I'm going to go up to work out because I work out first. Yeah. So, but I turn on my sauna like 15 minutes before my workout. And I go up there, work out for 60, and I go in the sauna.
Yeah, or the smart sauna has a remote start.
Has what?
Has a remote start. It'll get to where you want it.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, but then you got Wi-Fi.
You do, but it's also, you can turn that off, or you can connect it to an Ethernet. So you can have
that's nice. Yeah. Yeah. Eric was thinking of that one for sure.
EMF is one of our things. Yeah. He wouldn't even it was just a couple years ago that we finally got Bluetooth in the foundation model, which you can completely disable and plug your phone in with an aux cord. But
how do you do that? Is it on by default or is it off by default?
I think.
Or is that only the smart sauna?
No, there's Bluetooth in our other saunas that you can turn on and off. I don't know if it's on.
Yeah, I should look at that because so you can connect it to, like if you have a notebook that you're using, the would it have to be Wi-Fi for work, or it could just be Bluetooth?
No, just Bluetooth. Yeah. So that's a little bit of EMF, but
it's not that bad.
You made the option to turn it off. But we had a CD player radio.
I should play with that. I'm going to have to talk to Eric.
We had a CD player radio until like 2 years ago. And we kept telling him, we're like, Eric, nobody has CDs anymore. We need to upgrade. But he was so resistant because of the EMF.
They're in the museum, for sure. Along with the 8-track players and the cassette players.
But so, EMF it's a big thing with us. It's our thing.
All right. Well, Jenna, it's been great talking to you, and continue your work with this magnificent tool and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Dr. Mercola.
Thanks so much for watching. Remember, hit the like and subscribe button so you can get more videos that can help you and your family take control of your health.